Chapter 43. Outpost 44. That's enough for now, men. We can finish clearing out the rest of the rabble in the morning. Raditz says as his men salute and take off. He lifts off into the air, heading back to camp as well. While things have been slow for the past few months, it was good to be back taking over planets. As great a loss it was to lose planet Vegeta, along with King Vegeta and Kakarot, things were looking up for the time being. He looked down at the path of destruction his team had led through the resistance forces, a city on fire below. Raditz slams to a stop, just inches away from a scion that appeared in front of him, only a sharp crack alerting him to his presence. He backs up, a moment passing before he recognizes the scion in front of him. A scion that is practically shaking with rage. Raditz pushes, his hair flashing to golden spikes, as he ascends to Super Saiyan 2. I knew it would come to this one day, Raditz says, shaking his head. I didn't think it would be this soon. It certainly doesn't look suspicious that you see me, and immediately prepare for battle, Kll says, glancing at Raditz's spiked golden hair. You forget, kid, I know all about you. If you're here to kill me. Raditz replies, so let's do it. Kll doesn't move, not even to transform or power up. Are you so much of a fool that you think you can kill me without transforming? Raditz yells. Kll almost seems to smirk, before shaking his head. I guess we'll see. Planet Scion moments later. The sun had set just hours before, yet Indivaya, king of all Scions, still sat in his throne room going over data on his information pad. After denying several requests, and marking 2 others for further review, he finally decided it was time for bed. As he stood up, stretching, he paused. Looking around the room, a look of concern came over his face. He couldn't quite place it, but he could almost swear he felt danger coming. He reaches up slowly, preparing to send an alert out on his scouter when all hell breaks loose. There is a pop of displaced air as Kll appears several feet above the white gold tiles of the throne room. His hand is wrapped tightly around the face of an unknown scion, his arm reared back as though to throw them. Half a heartbeat passes between his appearance and him slamming the unknown scion headfirst into the ground, wide cracks spiderwebbing out from the impact. Indivia's body reacts on instinct, the danger of an unknown situation pulsing through his body as he too ascends to Super Saiyan 2. A glance has him recognize the long fluffed hair of Raditz, who can barely be seen from the depths of the crater. Kll, stop! Indivaya yells as Kll raises his hand, a ball of boiling energy poised to wipe Raditz from existence. Indivia's order reaches me, and I pause, right as I'm about to vaporize Raditz. Stop! I ask, my voice a whisper in the silent room. Did you just tell me to stop? I turn around, and Indivaya is practically shaking in his boots. I'm going to give you one chance, Indivaya, I say, as I start walking over to him. Did you know? Did I know what? He asks, backing up slightly. Did you know about the Namekian your father was keeping in the dungeons? I could see from the look on his face that he did. Explain. My fist was inches from Indivia's face, inches from smearing him across the floor, when a large hand bathed in fire wrapped around my wrist stopped me in my tracks. Debris rains down on us from Broly's entrance. Indivaya reacts, my sudden attack happening so quickly that his eyes hadn't even widened at my approach. Had Broly not interfered, Indivaya would have been dead before he ever saw me move. He launches himself backward, pulsing his energy as he smashes through the back wall. Kll, what is happening? Broly asks. They betrayed me, Broly. Tracking me. Spying on me. It was like a fucking game to them. I yell, pushing him back. They kidnapped my friend and tortured him for information. It's because of them that the Shadow Dragons were born. He drops out of his Super Saiyan God form before replying. Kll, he is king. I understand that you're angry, but killing him would make the rest of our people hate you. There would be no coming back. I don't care anymore. I plan to leave and never return regardless. But the madness ends here, I say, turning to the hole behind the throne. Raditz dies, and so does Indivaya. I blast the hole that Raditz still lays in, wiping that entire part of the palace out of existence, before launching myself into the air. I could sense the city waking up in response to all the destruction. If I didn't want to kill half the planet, I needed to finish this now. I tracked Indivia's power level to a spot just outside of the city, arriving just seconds later. 5 Scions surrounded Indivaya, their energy coalescing into an amalgamation of power. As I touched down, Indivaya was already floating into the air, his energy catching fire as he ascended much like I once did. I sense Broly touch down behind me, and a glance shows that he's surprised at the turn of events as well. Is this what you wanted this to come to, Kll? Indivaya asks as he drops back to the ground. My father was always worried that one day you'd turn on us, and he was right. Turn on you? Is that what you think this is? I ask, shaking my head. Of course. Your pride and ego have left you blind to your fault in this. My pride is that of a scion, and my ego is well earned. Indivaya snarls back at the insult. Now stand down before I put you down. You're no match for me as a super scion god. No interest in a fair fight, then? I ask. Surely you wouldn't want to face me when I'm not at my best. I'm not a fool, KLL. For some scions, they would see this as a challenge, something they need to rise to the occasion to face head-on. He replies, settling into his fighting stance. And you? What do you see? I ask. Someone I thought was my friend, choosing a Namekian over his own race, Indivaya says, before disappearing in a flash of fire. My hand comes up, bathed in fire as well, catching his fist a foot from my face. His eyes widen, the realization that I don't need 5 other scions to ascend to Super Scion God an obvious shock to him. My left snaps up, slapping Indivaya across the face, sending him careening away to slam into the ground. He pushes himself back to his feet, grimacing at me as his face swells slightly. How? He asks. How is that even possible? You're blind, Indivaya, I reply. I always knew better than to tell you and your father all my secrets. It was obvious, much like now, that you'd only use them against me, that you'd use them for your own gain. I never asked for anything in return that wasn't meant to make our race stronger. I died for them, you realize. I died for you, but no more and never again. The fiery red energy that surrounds me seemed to freeze, shattering away to leave behind pink. Ascending from Super Scion God to Super Scion Rose was an interesting feeling, but one that I was coming to relish. Indivaya took a step back, able to sense my power level as it shot up and up, higher than anything he ever imagined was possible. You said you saw me as a friend? I ask. KLL. Please, Indivaya replies, taking a step back. Without a sound to betray the movement, I'm behind him. My hands find their place, one on his chin, the other on the back of his head. Faster than he could ever hope to see, there is an audible pop, his body dropping like a sack of meat. His neck is bent at an impossible angle, the life leaving his eyes just moments later. I thought you were my friend too. I whisper. I had betrayed my race, killed my king. I had 2 choices, I felt 2 paths I could take from here. I could leave, sure. Disappearing would be easy. A small ounce of concentration, and I'd be on the other side of the galaxy, never to be seen again. But I knew that with no king, no heir, the scions would do as scions tend to do. They would fight, they would war, and countless beings would die under their feet in their attempts to forge a new leader. As much as I hated what had been done, as much as I hated what they had become, the scions were now my people. Kakarot and Bara shining examples of what a scion actually could be, with an ounce of compassion and control. 2 scions that loved their race. According to Omega, Bara would have led the scions to a golden age of peace and prosperity. So I would too in his place. My fellow scions, I start speaking to all the planets in our empire, all the scions on the planet. I've called for this meeting because I have bad news. Our king Indivaya has fallen. He passed away earlier today, while fighting off 5 other scions, in what appears to be an attempting coup. I arrived in time to kill his attackers, but not before he was struck down. I was lying, and I was a murderer. I had to kill 5 scions with good hearts, the only ones that knew the truth, to save countless more lives. It was a sacrifice that would stain my soul, that weighed heavily on my heart. But as long as I had Gamer's mind activated, I could ignore it. It was telling me, a whisper in the back of my head, that the lives of a few were worth the lives of countless millions. There is no heir to the throne. King Indivaya was not married. King Vegeta has no other children. There are rumors that King Vegeta has a brother, but I have not yet found anything to corroborate that. In light of this, as much as I hate it, I will be taking over as acting king. The council agrees that for now, this is best. I do of course know that quite a few of you will disagree with this decision, and I understand. For that reason, I will be accepting all challengers for the throne. Come to me, and if you can beat me in singles combat, I will relinquish the throne to you. This will begin in 1 week, as I'm declaring a week of mourning. Thank you. I finish. I'd only had 12 hours since killing Indivaya to think of the best way to handle the fallout. Tracking down the God Squad and killing them, arranging the bodies so that it would appear how I wanted it to seem. I didn't like it. However, with the stage set, I felt that my performance was adequate. Instead of fighting each other for the throne, they would be fighting me. No one in this empire could hope to even hurt me, let alone beat me. I knew that over the next few weeks I'd have to fight several scions, beat them soundly, and hopefully keep the empire together. After shutting down the communication system, I turned back to the gathered council. I had long wondered where Nappa had ended up, as I'd never seen anything to clue me into his location. Nappa and several other scions I didn't recognize made up the council. Advisors, mostly. They did each have their own section of things they were in control of. For example, Nappa was part of the command structure for world acquisition. Council, I have a job for you, I tell them. You're acting king only KLL. I think until you've fought off a few challengers, we'll hold off on following orders. Nappa replies, getting several nods from the other council members. Wouldn't want to follow the orders of a false king, now would we? I see. So you believe, what? That someone in the Empire could possibly be stronger than I am. I ask. I've never personally seen you in action, so I. He trails off. With a thought, I turn off energy suppression enhanced and shift into potential unlocked. My power level was over 3T in this form, which dwarfed the entire Empire on its own. Only 2 of the Council had worked to sense power levels, but they all still wore their scouters. All of which tried calculating my power level, and then exploded. Then let me make this clear. I am the strongest person in this galaxy, potentially in this universe. I have 2 transformations past this, that increase my power even further. No one, and I mean no one, will be taking the throne away from me. I tell them, meeting each of their eyes. Any questions? No? Good. Then here are your orders. I drop back to my base form, joining them at the table. Nappa, you're to begin slowly pulling the strike forces out of acquisition wars. As of today, the scions are no longer expanding. What? Nappa starts. Shut up, Nappa. I snapped immediately, glaring at him. We're done expanding. As for the rest of you, Earth 2 days later. I appeared with a pop on Cammy's lookout, finally free to return and fulfill my promise. I had left in a rage last time, learning that Muri had suffered because of me. I wasn't proud of how that situation had turned out, but what was done was done. All I could do was make the best of it. I walked slowly over to opening that served as the entrance to the lookout, Mr. Popo meeting me at the entrance. KLL. Mr. Popo says in welcome. Hello, Mr. Popo. How are Muri and Cammy? I ask. Cammy is as always. It is good that you did not take too long to come back, or I fear we may have had to attempt the defeat of Piccolo on our own. He replies. Muri is damaged, to say the least. I see. Well, I'm glad I got here in time. I reply, looking into the darkness of the lookout. I could sense Cammy on his way, and it only took him a moment to make his appearance. Within his arms was a rice cooker, the kanji for demon on a fraying tag across the lid. He nods at me as he walks towards the center of the lookout, setting the rice cooker down and backing up. KLL, are you ready? Cammy asks. Did you destroy the Dragonballs? I ask. I did. The model has been destroyed as well. It would take me years to remake it, should I be unable to control my evil impulses. Cammy replies. I see. And the Black Star Dragonballs? I ask. Yes, I'd forgotten that you knew of those. It's been years since your friend Bulma studied them. Those, I'm afraid, I am unable to destroy. I would have destroyed them many, many years ago if I could. Cammy says. What did you do with them? I ask. Mr. Popo has taken them into the time chamber and sealed it. It cannot be opened again for 3 months, during which time I expect you'll kill me if I am unable to fight my evil nature. Cammy replies, looking down at me. That's all then. I'm ready. I say, stepping back. Cammy mimics the plucking and removal of the tag. An invisible hand follows suit. There is a hiss as the rice cooker shakes before popping open. I watch Cammy's face as Piccolo escapes the containment. What is this? Piccolo asks, his voice shaking. It's time, Piccolo, Cammy says, walking forward. Piccolo steps back before realization passes over his face. Cammy, yes, I see. So it's come to this, has it? I'm removing the potential for you to one day be released upon the world again, Piccolo. Cammy replies, as though you're a saint. Piccolo laughs. Look at you. You're no better than I am now. I can sense it. You've nearly lost it all, and yet you still want to preach to me. I am nothing like you. Cammy yells, the first true anger I've ever seen from the man coming to the surface. You've always been a fool, Cammy, Piccolo says, dropping into a fighting stance. But fine, come. I'll end you here and now and rule this world as I was meant to. Cammy shoots forward, his hand stretched out like a dagger, which Piccolo parries. He slaps it downward, his knee coming up to barely miss Cammy's chin. Cammy's long fingers wrap around Piccolo's ankle, yanking him forward into a rising uppercut. The force of the blow knocks them apart, Piccolo barely making it back to his feet for his landing. I take this chance to ping and observe on Piccolo. Name, Piccolo. Title, King. Race, Namekian. Age, 321 years. Status, alive. HP, 2300. LVL, 5. King Piccolo is the evil half of Cammy, current guardian of Earth. Split off from the main being so that Cammy could be pure, he is pure evil. Having used the Dragon Balls to regain his youth, he hunted down and killed most of the strongest fighters on Earth. Only through the sacrifices of Krillin, Tien, and Master Roshi was he stopped previously. As you'll see, Piccolo, I am not a frail old man at a disadvantage this time, Cammy says, returning to his stance. Piccolo snarls, before releasing a blast of energy from his mouth. Cammy slaps the blast aside as he shoots back in, landing 5 hard shots to Piccolo's chest and stomach. Piccolo rallies, blocking the 2 final shots before getting an elbow shot to Cammy's jaw, giving him breathing room. Kami drops for a leg sweep. Piccolo hops over it. With a burst of sudden speed, Kami is able to finish the sweep and regain his feet in time to catch Piccolo in midair for a harsh kick to the side that launches him away. He hits the lookout, bouncing several times. He rolls, a screech as his nails grind on the tiles of the lookout to right himself. Seeming to anticipate it, Kami is already in place. The hardest knee I've ever seen smashing into Piccolo's nose, smashing it flat. With a scream, he releases a blast of energy that knocks Kami back. He gets close following the blast, catching Kami off guard for several chops. Kami returns the blows, damaging Piccolo much more than even I expected. A hard cross, a scratch of the nails, a blow to the chest that cracks ribs. Unwittingly, Kami was tearing Piccolo apart almost effortlessly. Never. Again. Kami yells, holding Piccolo by his GI, slamming his fist into Piccolo's face with each word. Kami, I say, putting my hand on his shoulder, halting any further attacks. It's done. You've won. Kami looks over his shoulder at me, before looking back down at Piccolo. Piccolo's face is smashed, blood smeared down half of it. His GI is shredded, burned in several places. The fingers on his right hand are broken or missing. Kami releases his grip, Piccolo dropping hard to the lookout before he stumbles several feet away to drop to his knees. My word, what have I become? Kami whispers. Jay, just like me. Piccolo responds, sitting up on his elbows. I'll never be just like you. Kami yells, turning towards Piccolo. I have given everything for this planet. You tried to rule it, tried to destroy it. I wanted to save it. Whose fault is that, Kami? Piccolo asks, dropping back onto his back. You made me to be evil. Also, you could be guardian. You coveted the position so greatly that you released me on the world. Does that not make you the monster? I did as my nature dictated. Enough, Piccolo, I say, stepping forward. Kami, he's beat. Kami nods, taking a few breaths before getting back to his feet and stepping over. He places his hand on Piccolo's arm, whose body is bathed in white energy. The energy rises, flowing up Kami's arm before all of it is absorbed inside him. As quick as it started, it's over. Kami, I ask after a moment of silence. I'm fine, KLL. It's quite an adjustment is all. He replies before getting back to his feet. Thank you for your help, KLL. I fear had you not stopped me, I may have killed him. Kami tells me. I promised I would help. It's my fault you're in this mess. I reply. Kami nods, but not in a negative way, as we make our way from closer to the edge of the lookout to the center. He pauses as he looks at the rice cooker, before a blast of energy from his hand destroys it. No need for that now, he says, before turning and beginning to make his way towards the entrance of the lookout. I follow behind, my eyes meeting Mr. Popo's questioning eyes. Mr. Popo moves over to me, about to whisper to me. A motion of my hand stops him. A shake of my head stops his approach. I look towards the entrance, my eyes meeting Muri's from the shadowed entrance, his head shaking back and forth. Kami, I ask as he nears the entrance. What is it, KLL? He asks, stopping and turning back towards me. Name, nameless Namekian. Title, not applicable. Race, Namekian. Age, 540 years. Status, alive. HP, 1,180,000. LVL, 12. With the rejoining of their bodies and souls, Kami and Piccolo are no more. What remains is the nameless Namekian, whose heart is tainted by the evil that was growing within Kami. He hopes to trick KLL into believing he is Kami long enough to force Muri to remake the Namekian Dragonballs. I'm sorry, I say, as my blast overtakes him. I look down, trying my best to ignore the anguished cries of Mr. Popo behind me, trying my best to ignore the rising guilt at my own hand in this mess. I close my eyes, the stinging behind them too much to fully ignore. I'm sorry, Mr. Popo, I say, before disappearing with a pop. Beerus's planet, 8 months later. My lord. Whis calls, as he enters the tall tower that is Beerus's home. What? Beerus calls down from his floating bed. What is it, Whis? Can't you see I'm napping? I know, but it's time to wake up. Whis tells him once he floats up to the bed. Is it? Beerus says, stretching as he sits up. How much longer do we have? For months, as you asked. I kept track of his movements just in case. His signature changes so much that I didn't want to lose him. Whis replies, an image appearing in the air above his staff. Good. Let's go collect him, and then see which 2 of the 3 will survive. Beerus says, dropping from the floating bed to the floor far below. Of course, my lord. We'll be at his ship in just a few hours. Whis says, as a golden glowing circle forms around them. Beerus grunts, before they are spaceborne, whisked away to their destination.